What's up guys, Adam here from Backyard Gardening and Cooking, and today I'm going to show you how I completely transformed my front yard landscape from an overgrown mess to something that actually has curb appeal. So stay tuned, I'm going to give you guys some gardening tips on how you can improve your landscape, so let's garden on. So as you can see, my front yard was a complete mess, overgrown. I had a lot of work ahead of me. So I'm going to show you some of the ways that I made over my front yard and how you guys can do the same to yours. Years of growth had really started to take a toll on my front yard landscape. So one of the first things I did was to pull up all of the old and overgrown plants and really start to do a good weeding. With everything all cleared out, it was really easy to start to make a plan to see what I wanted to do next. So one of the first things I did was to dig up all of these landscaping stones and wash them off. In the main bed, I only had them going up the walkway and not all across the front of the bed. So what I did was to dig up some of the other stones that were in the front beds near the street, and I just moved them over. But I didn't want just to place them down, so I dug a trench first and placed them down in that trench so they would be more stable and unified in place. But I thought that having the landscaping stones in that main bed looked a lot better than having them half buried in the front bed near the street. So the next thing I did was to lie down some landscaping edging around this Texas live oak. It looked pretty ugly, so once I got the edging around the tree, I laid down some cypress mulch around the base of the tree. It ended up looking a lot better than it did, so I'm pretty happy with the end result. So the final hardscaping tip I want to give you guys is to use landscaping rocks. I got these at the Home Depot. They're red lava rocks, but I wasn't really sure with how they were end up looking, but in the end I'm really happy with the results. I also got some of their larger pond pebbles, so I put them around a border, so I'm really happy with the contrast of the white and the red rocks. But these do more than just a cosmetic look. They're functional because they help prevent weeds. So I'm going to go back and get more of these rocks so I can fill in more of the other areas, but I'm really happy with how it ended up looking. If you want plants that will grow best in your area, you want to grow native and adaptive plants. The first plant that I'm growing in my landscape is Texas sage. I'm growing Texas sage because it requires a low amount of moisture once it's established. So you can pretty much neglect it and it will still grow well in my area. But it's also evergreen, it flowers, and it attracts pollinators. So it's all around a good shrub for my landscape. The second shrub that I'm adding to my landscape is a dwarf Burford holly. I'm just trying to break up the root ball right here. It was very badly root bound, so hopefully it takes off. But these grow around 6 to 8 feet tall, so I wanted to cover up that window. So once it fills in, it should look pretty good in this spot. But the one thing to be aware of, it requires a moderate amount of water. You want to water it at least once a week, and in the summer maybe 2 or 3 times a week. So depending on how hot your area is, it might need more water. So the other thing too that I like about this is that it has these red berries around Christmas time. So I think it's really good in my landscape. So I'm adding a second variety of holly. This is a Yaupon holly. They're good for low hedges and they make a good border, but they also handle a wide variety of soil conditions and they can withstand a drought. As you can imagine, it gets pretty hot here in Houston, Texas, so these will do very well in the middle of the summer. So the next plant that I added to my landscape was Mexican salvia. Mexican salvia grows well in zones 8A to 10B. It's drought resistant and only needs a minimum amount of care once it's been established, but it also attracts butterflies and hummingbirds. But one thing to note is that it does require full sun. One of my goals with this landscaping transformation project was to grow mostly native plants. This is red yucca. It's native to Texas, and once it's established, it's really easy to grow and requires very little water. So you can pretty much set it and forget it, and it'll still grow pretty well in zone 9 or other hot areas. But like I mentioned earlier, I did some hardscaping in this area, and then in the second area I have a second red yucca growing, and I'm growing some marigolds and zinnias with it. So each year I'm going to grow other annuals with this red yucca plant, but it produces a rose red pinkish type of flower, so it should look really good in my landscape. I understand that the cost of soil can end up being very expensive, but trust me, you don't want to skimp on the quality of your soil. It's very important. If you're growing evergreen shrubs or perennials, you're going to want to grow them in mushroom compost. That's going to be the best growing medium for perennials because they love a fungi-rich environment, which mushroom compost provides. So for my Texas sage, you see me adding the mushroom compost, and same with the Mexican salvia. It was expensive, so I'm limited to some of the more expensive shrubs. But as far as the cow manure went, I used it mainly as a filler and for cheaper plants like the zinnias and the marigolds. So as I mentioned earlier, soil is very important, but the next thing that's almost just as important as soil is mulching. You want to make sure that you mulch because in those hot months, the mulch is actually going to help retain water, so you're not going to have to water as much. You still have to water, but it's just going to help with that water retention. But mulch is also very important because it builds up nutrients, so over time it's going to break down and add to the quality of your soil. I'm using cypress mulch. I'm not sure if you can find it in your area, but it's mainly a Texas thing. But I just like how it looks, and it was a little cheaper than some of the other mulches, and it's more natural and doesn't have any kind of artificial dyes or anything like that. But I'm pretty happy with the end result. So my last landscaping tip is more of a bonus tip, but it's for lighting. I got these solar power landscaping lights, and they turn on and off automatically each night. They don't require a battery or anything. So when the sun comes up, they turn off, and when the sun goes down, they turn on. But I like how they look, and I might even get a second row to put in the back. But they were $5 each, so I just got a few for now. But in the end, I think they ended up looking really good. Alright guys, so that was how I transformed my front yard landscape into something that actually looks good. Pretty proud with how it ended up looking. Like I said before, it was a complete mess. Now it looks pretty good. But if you guys found this video helpful in any way, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel for more gardening and cooking videos. Thanks for watching.